Hello everyone, this is Dave Bredhauer. Thanks for stopping by. I'm going to start a video today to show you how to use Distress Oxide ink in a simple collage style card using one of our new candle dies from the 2019 Christmas collection. I've cut an oversized piece of white cardstock. This is about 5 3/4 by 4.5 inches. It's oversized because I plan on cutting it down later on to fit on an A2 size card. Now first off, I'm going to put a little bit of Wild Honey Distress Oxide ink, and then I'm going to put a little bit of a darker color around it. Now I'm using some just distress ink here in a brown color, but you can basically use any color you want, just something dark, some dark brown or a black or a dark blue. I'm just putting this down as a base coat because we're going to be putting a lot of different colors on top of it, and this will deepen the color. Now I've cut out the gilded taper candle, and I want to create sort of a halo around the flame. So I'm just using a circle die and cutting a post-it note out to mask off an area that's going to be the little halo around the flame. And I'm going to put this inside of a box so that I can spray it with some Distress Oxide sprays. Now I'm going to be using peacock feathers, twisted citron, and mowed lawn, and that box is going to catch the overspray as I'm doing this. You want to shake these up just a little bit side to side just so you get the pigment all mixed up inside the bottle, and then go ahead and start spraying. I'm starting with peacock feathers. You put a fine mist on there. I like to put a little bit on at a time and slowly build it up, and I'm spraying different amounts in different sections of the background. So you can see it's going right on top of that post-it note. I've left one edge of the post-it note a little bit raised up, so a little bit of that distressed oxide is getting underneath it, and that's going to create an interesting effect that you'll see later on. Now I'm not even going to wait for this to dry. I'm going to add a little bit more color. This is broken china, more towards the bottom so that it gets a little bit more saturated, and you can see how those little droplets have settled in some spots and given it sort of a soft texture. And peel that up and you can see a little bit of that spray has kind of gotten onto the side of that halo. I will be using the antique greenery label for the next step. I'm going to cut that out of some craft cardstock, but I'm going to trim off the leaves on the side. I really just want to use that frame for what I'm going to be doing on this card, and I'll save those leaves for another project. Just use some scissors just to sort of trim off those leaves so that I'm just left with that outline. I'm going to use that same die to cut out a middle piece in black cardstock, and that'll be what I'm going to put my word on for the project. So you'll see that that sort of fits inside of it, and I'm just going to use that as a plain old label holder. Now, one of my favorite new alphabets to work with is the Mini Vintage Varsity alphabet. And I created a few dies that use some common words. In this one, it's peace, love, and joy. So I start by using the center letter, positioning it in the middle of the label, and then building out from there. I found that that's probably the easiest way for me to make it centered and make the letters look sort of even. Now if they get a little bit out of whack, it's okay. It just kind of adds to that vintage sort of look, and takes no time at all. You're all done, and that label's ready to go. I'm going to put a little bit of foam mount on the back just to hold that label in place inside the frame, and then that's ready to be used on the project. Now I want to go back to my background. I want to add a little bit more color now that that's had a little bit of time to dry. I still wanted a little bit deeper color at the bottom of the background, so I'm adding some more ink. Again, this is just a dark ink. I'm using Distress ink in ground espresso. This isn't going to necessarily make things look brown because I'm going to add more color to it on top of it. It's just going to deepen the colors that I stick right on top. So I'm going to follow that up with a layer of Distress Oxide and peacock feathers. You'll remember that one of the Distress Oxide sprays that I used was peacock feathers, so this blends in nicely, just going right on top of that brown ink, and you can see it's that peacock feathers color, but it's darkened just a bit. And I'm just going to position that gilded candle right on top to see if things still line up, and I like how it's turned out at the bottom. I do want to add a little bit more color, a little bit more texture. So I've really been into splattering things lately. I'm not sure why I've been splattering all of my cards, but I think it just adds a lot of texture and interest. So I've put the background back inside my box, and I've got some metallic watercolor. I'm adding a little bit of liquid to a couple pans of the color, a gold color and then sort of a platinum color. Just putting some water in there to activate them. And I'm going to use that as the splatter on top of the background. I like to use a little piece of window plastic. Any kind of transparency or plastic sheet will do. I'm just going to put a little bit of that paint right onto the window plastic. In general, I just use a little bit of a puddle of it there, and I don't worry too much about keeping the colors pure. I tend to kind of mix them a little bit, and I just flick it right off the end of the plastic there. I always seem to have a little piece of plastic lying around my desk, and you can see the nice little droplets that you get on there. And it's just going to add some dimension once you get that background all together. I think layering all the different colors and adding different droplets and splatters of different kinds of paints really add to what that looks like at the end, and it doesn't take much effort. I'm going to use some more watercolor here. This is just plain old watercolor in a couple of different blue shades. I'm using the same process where I add some water directly to the palette, then I make a little puddle. I'm mixing it with some of that metallic paint that's still stuck on my window plastic, and once I've got the color just the way I want it, I'm going to just start flicking that onto the background again. And that metallic paint and the watercolor paint are going to sort of mix together and create an interesting color combination onto the background. And just keep adding speckles of paint until you have achieved the desired effect. It's totally up to you. There's no wrong answer here. Just keep going. And you can see that that metallic paint has dried and it really shines in the light. It's very interesting. Now I'm going to peel off that little masking tape there, that little circle that shows my halo, and it's been protected from all those speckles. And I just love how it just has a nice little halo around the flame of the candle right at the top. Now I want to add another layer to this collage card. I'm going to take the bobble snowflake corner and cut the card so that it is positioned right around the halo of the candle. At first I was going to put it on top of the candle, but I decided after positioning things that I wanted it underneath. So I'm going to kind of line that up so that the bobble snowflake corner gets positioned right so that the center of it is around that halo of the candle. I just use a little bit of glue to put things in place. And I put it so that that middle just goes around the perimeter of that little halo that we've created for the candle. And I press that nice and flat. It covers some of that speckled background and just adds to that nice little speckled background that we created. And I decided the edges needed to be darkened just a little bit. I've taken some espresso ink and I'm just gently rubbing the edges just to give it a little bit more of an antique-y sort of look. Just go around all four edges. And once that's done, you can see that the edges are nice and darkened and it's still got all that little speckly shine on it. I put some foam mounting tape on the back of the gilded candle, and I'm going to position that so that the flame is right in the center of that halo, and the bottom with all those little filigree flourishes and that metallic gold paper show up against that dark area. And I'm going to take that peace sign that we created earlier with the label and peel off the foam mounting tape so that it sticks up just a little bit and gets dimensional at the bottom of the card. And I'm going to carefully tuck that into the golden scroll work at the bottom of the candle, and that'll finish things off. This is such a great card if you enjoy playing with color like me. Please subscribe, and I'll see you again soon.